At exactly 3:17 p.m., Franklin hit send. A flirty message meant for his Tinder match. But it didn't go to her. It went to the billionaire CEO controlling the one thing that could save his daughter's life. That single message should have destroyed him. But instead, it changed everything. Because when Isabel Livingston showed up at his door, she wasn't just holding his future in her hands. She was hiding a past that mirrored his own pain. What started as a mistake became the moment two broken people found purpose, and maybe even something more. Would you open the door if your daughter's fate was on the other side? Would you face the woman who could save her, or destroy everything? Stay with me. Because this story, it proves one accidental message can unlock the life you never dared to imagine. Before we dive in, where are you watching from, and what kind of story do you want to see next? Drop it in the comments. And if stories like this pull you in and don't let go, go ahead, hit subscribe. I have another powerful one coming tomorrow. And you really don't want to miss it. Now, let's get into today's story. Franklin Russell's thumb hovered over the send button for just a second. 1 second of confidence. 1 second where he felt like a normal man, not a desperate father drowning in medical bills and prayer. Just a guy texting a woman he'd matched with on a dating app. Tina, the kindergarten teacher with the warm laugh who'd made him feel human again during their coffee date last week. He pressed send. The whoosh sound felt like relief. Like permission to believe, even for one evening, that his life could be more than hospital waiting rooms and pharmaceutical company rejection letters. Franklin set his phone down on the kitchen counter and exhaled. Patty was asleep upstairs, her breathing labored but steady. The monitors he'd installed last month beeped softly through the baby monitor, a rhythm he'd memorized like a lullaby. Each beep meant she was still here. Still fighting. He walked to the fridge, thinking about what to wear tonight. Something casual. Maybe the blue shirt Patty said made him look not old. He smiled at the memory. Then his phone buzzed. His heart jumped. Tina responding already? But when he glanced at the screen, his blood turned to ice. The message sat in his text thread with Isabel L. Not Tina. Isabel Livingston. The Isabel Livingston, CEO of Livingston Pharmaceutical. The woman who'd personally denied Patty's application to the clinical trial 3 weeks ago. The woman whose signature was on the letter that had made him cry in his car for 20 minutes in the hospital parking lot. The woman who could decide if his daughter lived or died. And he'd just sent her a flirty text message meant for a Tinder date. No. No. Franklin's hands shook as he grabbed the phone. His vision blurred. There had to be a way to unsend it. Delete it. Make it disappear. But the message showed, delivered. Read 3:18 p.m. Read. She'd already seen it. Franklin's legs gave out. He slid down the kitchen cabinet to the floor, phone clutched in his trembling hands. This was it. Any microscopic chance Patty had, any miracle he'd been praying for, he just destroyed it with one stupid, careless mistake. How had this happened? Then he remembered, last week, after the rejection letter, he'd saved her office number in his contacts. Isabel L. Right above Iris, and catastrophically close to Tina in his recently contacted list. One wrong tap. One moment of not paying attention. And now the most powerful woman in pharmaceutical research thought he was, what? Hitting on her? Mocking her? His daughter's fate had been hanging by a thread. Franklin had just cut it himself. Franklin's phone felt like a bomb in his hand. Think. He could send a follow-up. Explain. Apologize. Beg. He started typing with shaking fingers. Ms. Livingston, I am so incredibly sorry. That message was meant for someone else. Please forgive the... He stopped. Would that make it better or worse? Would she think he was incompetent? Unprofessional? Would she add this to whatever file she had on Patty and mark it, father is unstable. Daughter is not a suitable candidate. Delete. Franklin dropped the phone like it had burned him. The baby monitor crackled. Patty coughed, a wet, painful sound that made his chest tighten. He closed his eyes. She'd been getting worse. The free clinic doctors had done everything they could, but without the trial drug, without Livingston Pharmaceuticals' new treatment. The statistics were clear. 6 months. Maybe 8 if they were lucky. And he just made sure luck wouldn't be finding them. Dad. Franklin's eyes snapped open. Patty stood at the bottom of the stairs in her oversized unicorn pajamas, one hand on the railing, the other clutching her stuffed elephant. Her skin had that translucent quality it got on bad days. Too pale, too fragile. "Hey, sweetheart." He forced his voice steady, forced the smile that had become his default mask. "What are you doing up? You're supposed to be resting. I heard you say no a lot." Her dark eyes studied him with that unnerving wisdom sick children developed too soon. "Is it bad news again?" "No, baby. No bad news." He stood, legs still unsteady, and walked over to scoop her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing now. Just Dad being clumsy with his phone. Nothing for you to worry about. She laid her head on his shoulder. "You always say that. Because it's always true." The lie tasted bitter. His phone buzzed on the floor. Once. Twice. 3 times in rapid succession. Patty lifted her head. "Is that your girlfriend?" "What?" "No, I don't have a." "Tina. The teacher lady. You smiled different after you met her." Franklin's heart cracked a little more. Even dying, his daughter was trying to make sure he was okay. "She's just a friend, Patty." "Friends are good." She yawned. "You need more friends." The phone buzzed again. Franklin ignored it. He carried Patty back upstairs, tucked her into bed, checked her monitors, adjusted her oxygen, and sang the lullaby his late wife used to sing, the one about stars and dreams and tomorrow always coming. When her breathing finally evened out into sleep, he allowed himself to fall apart. Just for a minute. Just long enough to feel the full weight of what he'd done. Then he walked downstairs, picked up his phone, and looked at the notifications. 4 text messages. All from Isabel L. His finger trembled as he opened them. The doorbell rang before Franklin could read the messages. He froze, phone in hand, staring at the front door like it might explode. 4 minutes. He checked the timestamp on that catastrophic text. 4 minutes ago. The doorbell rang again. Longer this time. More insistent. Franklin's mind raced through impossible scenarios. She wouldn't come here. CEO of a billion-dollar pharmaceutical company wouldn't personally show up at his door over a mistaken text. She'd send lawyers. Or security. Or just nothing. She'd ignore it like the nobody he was. But the doorbell rang a 3rd time. And somehow he knew. Franklin walked to the door like a man approaching the gallows. His hand touched the knob. Through the frosted glass panel, he could see a silhouette, tall, slim, unmistakably feminine. He opened the door. Isabel Livingston stood on his porch. No entourage. No security detail. No corporate armor. Just her. She wore dark jeans and a simple gray sweater, nothing like the severe business suits she wore in every photo Franklin had obsessively Googled after the rejection letter. Her black hair was pulled back in a ponytail instead of that tight bun. No makeup that he could see. But her eyes, those sharp calculating eyes that had stared out from magazine covers with the headline "The Ice Queen of Big Pharma," those were exactly as advertised. Except for one detail the photos had missed. Right now, in this moment, standing on his shabby porch in his shabby neighborhood, Isabel Livingston looked amused. "Mr. Russell." Her voice was surprisingly soft. Not warm exactly, but not the ice he'd expected. "I believe we need to talk about your message." Franklin's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His brain had completely short-circuited. She glanced past him into the house. "May I come in? Or would you prefer to have this conversation where your neighbors can see the CEO of Livingston Pharmaceutical making a house call?" That snapped him back to reality. Yes. I mean, please. Come in." He stepped aside, suddenly hyper-aware of the worn carpet, the peeling wallpaper, the stack of medical bills on the hall table. Isabel stepped inside and closed the door behind her with a soft click. They stood in the narrow hallway, less than 3 feet apart. Franklin found his voice. "Ms. Livingston, I am so profoundly sorry. That text was a mistake. A terrible, idiotic mistake. It was meant for someone else entirely, and I know." She cut him off, but not unkindly. "You know, Mr. Russell, I've built a company worth $3 billion. I didn't do that by lacking basic reading comprehension." She pulled out her phone and showed him the screen. "Your follow-up texts made the situation quite clear." Franklin's stomach dropped. "My follow-up texts? 4 of them, each more panicked than the last. Very thorough apology. Almost impressively thorough." He didn't remember sending 4 texts. Have you ever sent a message you wish you could take back? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your story. Franklin stared at her, trying to reconcile the woman standing in his hallway with the legend. The Ice Queen. The CEO who'd reportedly fired 3 executives in one meeting without blinking. The woman whose rejection letter had been typed in a font so cold it might as well have been chiseled in ice. But this woman, standing here in his house in jeans and a sweater, with her hair down and not a trace of makeup, she looked real. Human. And for just a moment, as her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile, Franklin saw something impossible in those sharp eyes. Amusement. Was she entertained by this disaster? "I truly am sorry, Ms. Livingston," he managed, his voice steadier now but still threaded with panic. "It was careless and unprofessional, and I understand if this affects." "Affects what, Mr. Russell?" She tilted her head slightly, studying him with an intensity that made him feel like a specimen under a microscope. "Your daughter's case." His throat tightened. Yes. You think I would punish a sick child because her father accidentally sent me a text message meant for his date?" The way she said it, calm, measured, almost curious, made him realize how insane that sounded out loud. "But also, I don't know," Franklin admitted quietly. "I don't know what kind of person you are, Ms. Livingston. I only know you're the person who said no." Something flickered across her face. Too fast to read. The amusement vanished, replaced by something harder to define. "That's fair," she said finally. "And accurate. I did sign that rejection letter." She glanced around the narrow hallway, taking in the details he tried to ignore: the water stain on the ceiling, the photos of Patty covering every wall, the medical equipment visible through the living room doorway. "But I didn't come here to discuss your texting habits, Mr. Russell." "Then why?" "Because your follow-up messages mentioned something I found concerning." Franklin blinked. He didn't remember what he'd written in those panicked texts. Everything after the first catastrophic message was a blur of terror and autocorrect. Isabel held up her phone again. "You wrote, and I quote, 'Please don't let my mistake hurt Patty. The doctor said she has 6 months without the trial.' 6 months. I've already lost her mother. I can't lose her too. Please." The words hit him like a punch. Had he really written that? Exposed everything like that? "The rejection letter I signed," Isabel continued, her voice quieter now, "stated that your daughter didn't meet the eligibility criteria. Specifically, that her condition hadn't progressed to the required stage." "Stage 3, Franklin whispered. "She needed to be stage 3. She was only stage 2. "Exactly." Isabel's eyes locked onto his. "So tell me, Mr. Russell, how does a stage 2 patient have 6 months to live?" The question hung in the air between them. Franklin's mind raced. The doctors said. Stage 2 patients have an average survival rate of 3 to 5 years with standard treatment. Your daughter should have time. Years, not months." Isabel's voice sharpened. "Unless something else is wrong. Unless the information I reviewed was incomplete. Or incorrect." "It was correct when we applied," Franklin said slowly, realization dawning. 3 months ago. But she's gotten worse. So much worse. Last week they said, His voice cracked. They said she's progressing faster than they've ever seen. That it's aggressive. That without the trial drug, we're looking at months, not years. Isabel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. And the trial coordinators? Did you inform them of this development? I tried. I called. I emailed. I sent updated medical records. Franklin's frustration bled through. I got automated responses. Thank you for your inquiry. Your case has been reviewed. The decision stands. Who did you speak with? I never spoke with anyone. Just forms. Automated systems. Dead ends. Isabel pulled out her phone and began typing rapidly, her fingers flying across the screen with practiced precision. Ms. Livingston? Franklin ventured. Why are you here? Really? She looked up, and for just a second, that amusement was back. Subtle. Almost hidden. Because, Mr. Russell, your text message was the most interesting thing that happened to me all week. Her expression shifted. And because something about your daughter's case isn't adding up. We need to talk about your message, Isabel said, slipping her phone back into her pocket. Her tone remained calm, controlled, precise, every word measured. But her eyes had shifted. They were all business now. The amusement had been filed away, replaced by the sharp focus of someone who'd built an empire by missing nothing. Franklin swallowed hard. I've already explained. Not that message. She cut him off with a slight wave of her hand. I mean the message your daughter's case is sending. The one that doesn't make sense. I don't understand. Isabel moved past him into the living room without waiting for an invitation. She took in everything. The hospital bed set up near the window, the four-stand, the oxygen concentrator humming in the corner, the pill organizer on the coffee table with its rainbow of medications. Her gaze lingered on a child's drawing taped to the wall, a stick figure girl holding hands with a taller stick figure, a son with a smiley face overhead. The word Dad was written in crayon across the top. Your daughter's initial application, Isabel said, still studying the room. Stage 2 adenocarcinoma. Markers within normal progression range. Standard prognosis, favorable with treatment. Nothing that would qualify for our trial. That's what the letter said. But that was 3 months ago. She turned to face him. Medical records can be updated. Conditions can deteriorate. We have protocols for exactly this situation. Patients who initially don't qualify but whose cases progress. Franklin felt a surge of something he was afraid to name. Hope was dangerous. Hope had broken him before. But the automated responses should never happen. Isabel's voice carried an edge now. Our trial has a dedicated patient advocacy team. Every rejected applicant receives a direct contact. Someone they can reach. Someone who reviews updates personally. Her eyes narrowed. You're telling me you received none of this? Nothing. Just forms and rejections. That's not protocol. That's not. She trailed off, pulling out her phone again. What was the reference number on your daughter's application? Franklin grabbed a folder from the stack on the hall table, the one he carried everywhere, stuffed with every document related to Patty's case. He flipped through pages with practiced efficiency. LPC 47-2891. Isabel typed it in. Her expression went cold. The silence stretched long enough that Franklin's heart started hammering again. What? He asked. What is it? Your daughter's case was flagged. Flagged? What does that mean? It means someone with administrative access marked it as non-viable candidate. Do not reconsider. Isabel's voice had gone dangerously quiet. That flag bypasses our advocacy team. It routes all correspondence to automatic rejection. It's meant for cases that are clearly fraudulent or have serious ethical red flags. Franklin felt the blood drain from his face. Fraudulent? Ethical? Ms. Livingston, I would never. I know. She looked up from her phone, and something in her eyes had shifted again. Anger. Cold, controlled anger. This flag wasn't placed by our medical review team. It came from administrative oversight. Someone with board-level access. Why would someone on the board flag a sick child? That, Isabel said softly, is exactly what I intend to find out. The apology Franklin had been preparing died on his tongue. She wasn't here to scold him. She wasn't here to make his life worse. She was here because something was wrong. Ms. Livingston, A soft sound from the stairs cut him off. They both turned. Patty stood on the bottom step, one small hand gripping the railing, the other clutching her stuffed elephant. Her unicorn pajamas were rumpled from sleep, hanging off her thin frame like they were 2 sizes too big, which they were, because 3 months ago they'd fit perfectly. Her bare feet made no sound as she stepped onto the hardwood floor. Franklin's heart seized. Patty, sweetheart, you should be resting. But Patty wasn't looking at him. She was staring at Isabel with those 2 wise, 2 old eyes. The eyes of a 7-year-old who'd spent more time in hospitals than playgrounds. Who understood words like prognosis and progression and palliative care better than any child should. Are you the medicine lady? Patty's voice was small but clear. Innocent in the way only children could be innocent, even when asking questions that shattered hearts. Isabel went completely still. Franklin watched something extraordinary happen in real time. The Ice Queen, the woman who'd reportedly made a Wall Street analyst cry during a quarterly earnings call, softened. Not a crack in her armor. A complete dissolution. Her sharp features gentled. Her shoulders dropped. When she knelt down to Patty's eye level, the movement was so fluid and natural it looked rehearsed, but Franklin could see it wasn't. It was instinct. Yes, sweetheart, Isabel said quietly. Her voice had transformed entirely, warm, soft, nothing like the crisp professional tone she'd used with Franklin. I'm here to help. Patty's tired smile was brave. God, she was always so brave. Dad says you're very important. That you're the boss of the whole medicine company. I am. But you know what? What? That just means I get to decide who I help. Isabel reached out slowly, letting Patty see the gesture coming, and gently touched her hand. And I've decided to help you. Patty's eyes widened. Really? Dad said you were too busy. That the medicine was for sicker kids. The words hit Franklin like a sledgehammer. When had she heard that? When had he said that? Probably late at night, talking to his sister on the phone, thinking Patty was asleep. Your dad was wrong, Isabel said simply. You're exactly the kind of brave girl who deserves every chance to get better. I am pretty brave. Patty agreed matter-of-factly, even when the needles hurt. Something flickered across Isabel's face, pain, quickly hidden. I bet you are. What's your name? Isabel. That's pretty. Like a princess name. Patty swayed slightly, and Franklin started forward, but Isabel was faster. She steadied the little girl with gentle hands. Are you okay, sweetheart? Just tired. I'm always tired now. Patty yawned, and Franklin saw Isabel's jaw tighten at the sound, that wet, concerning rattle that had become normal. Are you Dad's girlfriend? He needs a girlfriend. He's lonely. Patty, Franklin felt his face burn. But Isabel's expression softened into something that might have been a smile. No, honey. I'm just someone who made a mistake. And your dad helped me see it. Dad's good at helping people, even when he's sad. I can see that. Patty leaned against the railing, her elephant hanging limply from her hand. Will the medicine make me not tired anymore? Isabel looked at the little girl, really looked at her, and Franklin saw 1,000 emotions cross her face in the span of a heartbeat. Then she said the most remarkable thing. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you get the chance to find out. Not a promise. Not false hope. Just truth. Patty nodded like that was exactly the answer she needed. Okay. I like you, Isabel. You smell like flowers. My mom used to smell like flowers. The words hung in the air like fragile glass. Isabel's hand trembled, just once, just barely, before she steadied it. Thank you, Patty. That's very kind. Franklin moved forward finally, scooping Patty into his arms. She was lighter than she'd been yesterday. Always lighter. Let's get you back to bed, baby girl. Will Isabel still be here when I wake up? Franklin looked at Isabel over his daughter's head. The CEO met his gaze, and something passed between them. Understanding. Alliance. I'm not going anywhere, Isabel said. Not until we fix this. What would you do if a stranger showed up and offered hope when you'd lost it all? Tell me in the comments. Franklin carried Patty back upstairs, her head resting on his shoulder, her breathing shallow and uneven. Isabel followed without being asked, staying a respectful distance behind, but close enough that Franklin could feel her presence. In Patty's room, decorated with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling and drawings covering every wall, Franklin tucked his daughter back into bed. He adjusted her oxygen cannula, checked the monitors, made sure her water bottle was within reach. Will you sing the star song? Patty asked, her voice already drowsy. Always, baby. He sang softly, the same lullaby his wife used to sing. About stars that watched over little girls. About dreams that came true. About tomorrow always being full of light. When Patty's breathing finally evened out into sleep, Franklin turned to find Isabel standing in the doorway, her hand pressed against the frame like she needed it for support. Her face had changed. The Ice Queen, the sharp, controlled CEO, was gone. In her place stood a woman whose carefully constructed mask had shattered completely. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Ms. Livingston? Franklin whispered, careful not to wake Patty. Isabel blinked rapidly, turning away from the room. I'm sorry. I shouldn't. Her voice was thick. I'll wait downstairs. She disappeared before Franklin could respond. He kissed Patty's forehead, checked the monitors one more time, and found Isabel in the living room. She stood with her back to him, staring at that crayon drawing on the wall, the one with the stick figures and the smiling sun. I had a sister, Isabel said quietly, not turning around. Emma. She was 6 years younger than me. When she was 7, Patty's age, she got sick. Franklin went still. It was the same disease. Same aggressive progression. Same. Isabel's hand touched the wall near the drawing, not quite making contact. Same way of being brave when everything hurt. Ms. Livingston. Isabel. She turned, and Franklin saw her face was composed again, but barely. Like she was holding herself together through sheer will. If we're going to do this, if I'm going to help your daughter, you should call me Isabel. What happened to Emma? She died. The words were simple. Final. 23 years ago. There was no trial drug then. No experimental treatment. Just waiting. Watching her get smaller. Weaker. Isabel's jaw tightened. I was 14. I held her hand when she stopped breathing. And I swore that day that no other family would feel what we felt. That I would find a cure. Save the kids who came after. Understanding crashed over Franklin like a wave. That's why you started the company. That's why I do everything. Isabel's voice hardened. Which is why I need to understand how a child who should have been prioritized, a child whose case mirrors my sister's exactly, ended up flagged and rejected. How your updated medical records never reached the right people. How you were trapped in automated systems designed to help, not hinder. She pulled out her phone again, her fingers moving with renewed purpose. I'm going to need to see everything. Every document. Every rejection. Every piece of communication you've had with my company. Isabel's eyes met his. Because something is very, very wrong. And when I find out who did this, who flagged your daughter's case. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Franklin had seen that look before, in the mirror, every time he thought about the faceless bureaucrats who turned Patty away. It was the look of someone who'd burned the world down to protect a child. The kitchen, Franklin said. I have everything organized in the kitchen. They sat at the kitchen table, the same scarred oak table where Franklin had cried over the rejection letter, where he'd calculated bills he couldn't pay, where he'd researched funeral costs at 3 in the morning because planning for the worst felt like the only thing he could control. Now Isabel Livingston sat across from him, surrounded by his life in paper form. Franklin had always been organized. Had to be. Single father, full-time janitor at the university, part-time medical advocate for his daughter. Organization wasn't optional, it was survival. He pulled out folder after folder, spreading them across the table with practiced efficiency. This is the initial application. He slid the first stack toward her. March 15th. Complete medical history, doctor recommendations, financial disclosure, everything your website said you needed. Isabel scanned it quickly, her eyes moving with the speed of someone who'd reviewed thousands of applications. This is thorough. Exceptionally thorough. I couldn't afford to make a mistake. And the rejection? Franklin handed her the letter, the one he'd memorized word for word. April 2nd. Stage 2 doesn't qualify. Standard treatment recommended. Decision is final. Isabel read it, her expression unreadable. Then she pulled out her phone and took a photo of the document. This is the follow-up. Franklin continued, sliding over another folder. Updated medical records from May, showing the rapid progression. Stage 3 markers. The oncologist's urgent recommendation for trial enrollment. More photos. Isabel's jaw tightened with each page. The response. Automated email. June 1st. Your submission has been received. Unfortunately, the decision cannot be reversed at this time. Nothing else. Nothing. I called the patient advocacy line 17 times. Left messages. Sent emails. Franklin's hands clenched. I got one callback. A junior coordinator who told me the case was closed and couldn't be reopened without new application, which wouldn't be processed for 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks, Isabel repeated softly. Patty doesn't have 6 to 8 weeks. Isabel set down her phone and pulled one of the folders closer. She started reading more carefully now, her finger tracing lines of text, her other hand taking notes on her phone. Franklin watched her work. Watched the way her expression shifted. Confusion, then suspicion, then cold, controlled fury. This routing number, Isabel said, tapping a line on one of the automated emails. This isn't from our patient advocacy system. What do you mean? Every automated response from our system has a specific routing code. It's how we track communications, ensure nothing gets lost. She held up the paper. This code? It's from our administrative oversight system. The one board members use to review company operations. Franklin's stomach dropped. Board members? Why would a board member be routing my emails? They wouldn't. Not normally. Isabel pulled up something on her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. Unless they had administrative access to the patient database. Unless they specifically wanted to intercept communications. She was quiet for a long moment, reading something on her screen. Her knuckles went white where she gripped the phone. What is it? Franklin asked. Your daughter's case. Isabel's voice was dangerously quiet. Every update you submitted was rerouted. Every phone call you made was flagged and never forwarded. Every attempt you made to reach our medical team was systematically blocked. Blocked? By who? Isabel looked up, and Franklin saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before. Not anger, though there was plenty of that. Not determination, though that was there too. It was recognition. Personal, painful recognition. This isn't just a mistake, Isabel said. This is sabotage. Deliberate. Calculated. Someone with high-level access went out of their way to make sure your daughter never got help. But why? Why would anyone? I need to make a call. Isabel stood abruptly. I need to access the full administrative logs. See who had access to your daughter's file. She walked to the window, phone already at her ear. Franklin could hear her side of the conversation, terse, commanding, leaving no room for argument. David, I need a full access audit on case file LPC 47-2891. Every login, every modification, every flag. I want names and timestamps within the hour. I don't care what time it is. Wake people up if you have to. Because I'm looking at evidence of systematic case interference. And if you're asking me whether this is worth waking up the IT director, the answer is yes. She ended the call and stood at the window for a moment, her back rigid. Isabel. Franklin ventured. When she turned, her face was stone. I think I know who did this. Who? The word came out as barely a whisper. Isabel's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, and Franklin watched her expression harden even further, which he hadn't thought possible. I need to confirm something first. She sat back down at the table, pulling up files on her phone with rapid swipes. You said you called patient advocacy 17 times. Yes. Do you remember the dates? Franklin grabbed another folder, the one where he documented everything with obsessive detail. May 3rd, May 10th, May 17th. Stop. Isabel held up her hand. Her eyes were locked on her phone screen. May 10th. That was a Wednesday. Yes. And May 17th was also a Wednesday. They were all Wednesdays. That's when I had my afternoon off from work. Something clicked in Isabel's expression. Not satisfaction, something darker. There's a pattern. Every Wednesday for the past 3 months, someone with board-level access has been reviewing patient applications. Not our medical team. Not our coordinators. A board member, personally accessing cases that were in review or pending update. Is that normal? It's unusual. Board members oversee policy and finances. They don't typically dive into individual case files. Isabel pulled up another screen. But there's one board member who's been accessing the system every Wednesday. The same person who placed the "Do Not Reconsider" flag on your daughter's case. Franklin's heart was hammering now. Who? Isabel looked up, and there was something broken in her eyes. Something that went beyond professional outrage into something deeply, painfully personal. Marcus Hale, she said quietly. My ex-husband. The words landed like a bomb. Your ex-husband? He joined the board 2 years ago. Part of our divorce settlement, he'd been an early investor, and when we split, I gave him a board seat to avoid a legal battle over company valuation. Isabel's voice was bitter. I thought having him involved would keep things civil. Professional. I didn't realize he was still looking for ways to hurt me. But Patty, what does my daughter have to do with you and your ex-husband? Isabel was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. He knew. Marcus knew about Emma. About why I started this company. About how I personally review certain cases, children with aggressive progression, the ones that mirror my sister's case. She looked at Franklin, and he saw rage and guilt warring in her eyes. Your daughter's file would have crossed my desk eventually. I have alerts set up. Cases that match specific criteria come to me directly. So he blocked it before you could see it. He didn't just block it. He made sure I would never see it. The flag he placed? It prevents the case from appearing in my alerts. It routes all communications away from my team. It essentially makes the patient invisible to everyone who could help. Franklin felt sick. He sabotaged a child, a dying child, to get back at you? Marcus has always been. Isabel stopped, choosing her words carefully. Vindictive. When I told him I wanted a divorce, he said he'd make sure I never found peace in my work. That he'd poison everything I'd built. I thought he was being dramatic. I thought, her voice cracked. I thought wrong. The baby monitor crackled with Patty's breathing. Isabel looked toward the stairs, and Franklin saw her hand tremble before she clenched it into a fist. How many? Franklin asked quietly. How many other cases has he flagged? Isabel's fingers flew across her phone. The silence stretched. When she finally looked up, her face was ashen. 14. 14 cases in the past 8 months. All children. All matching my sister's profile. All systematically blocked from reaching me or my medical team. 14 families. 14 children who could have been saved. Franklin couldn't breathe. They're not all dead, Isabel said quickly, reading his expression. Some went to other trials. Some, she stopped. But some didn't make it. Some ran out of time. And Marcus did this. Deliberately. To hurt you. Yes. The word was ice. Isabel stood, and when she looked at Franklin, he saw the CEO return, the Ice Queen, forged in fury and purpose. I'm going to fix this. Not just for Patty. For all 14 cases. For every child he used as a pawn in his pathetic revenge. Her voice was steel. And then I'm going to destroy him. Have you ever discovered someone you trusted was capable of unimaginable cruelty? Share your story below. If you think this ends with a miracle, think again. Because the reason Patty was rejected had nothing to do with science. Subscribe because what happens next will make you question everything. Franklin watched Isabel pace his small living room like a caged predator. Her phone was pressed to her ear, her voice cold and clipped as she gave orders to someone on the other end. I want every board member on a call in 1 hour. I don't care if they're sleeping, eating, or in surgery. Yes, David, I'm serious. Tell them it's about systematic fraud at the board level. That should get their attention. She ended the call and immediately dialed another number. Richard? It's Isabel. I need you to pull every case file Marcus Hale accessed in the past 8 months. Because he's been sabotaging pediatric applications, and I have documentation. No, this can't wait until morning. I need it now. Franklin had never seen anything like it. This wasn't just a CEO making calls. This was a woman going to war. Each conversation was precise, strategic, building toward something he couldn't quite see yet. Ms. Livingston, Isabel, what are you doing? She held up one finger, still on the phone. Martin, I'm invoking Section 7.3 of the board bylaws. Emergency removal proceedings for misconduct. Yes, I know what time it is. Yes, I know it requires a full vote. That's why I'm calling a meeting. When she finally set the phone down, her eyes were blazing. I'm doing what I should have done 2 years ago, Isabel said. I'm removing Marcus from the board. Permanently. Can you do that? Just remove a board member. If I can prove deliberate sabotage that directly contradicts the company's mission and fiduciary duties? Yes. Isabel pulled up her laptop from her bag. Apparently she brought it in from her car at some point, and set it on his kitchen table. Marcus signed a code of ethics when he joined the board. He violated every single clause. Franklin moved closer, watching her pull up document after document. Case files. Access logs. Email trails showing systematic interference. These 14 children, Isabel said quietly, her finger tracing down a list of names on her screen. Every single one matches the profile of cases I personally review. Aggressive progression. Young age. Limited time. The exact cases that matter most to me. He knew you'd save them. And he made sure I never got the chance. Her jaw tightened. But he made one mistake. What's that? He documented everything. Every access, every flag, every routing change. It's all in the system logs. Marcus was always meticulous about covering his tracks legally. He just never considered that his own documentation would be the evidence that destroys him. Isabel's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and nodded. The board call is set for midnight. 1 hour. What happens then? I present the evidence. I call for his immediate removal. And then, she looked at Franklin, and something in her expression shifted. Softened. Then I fix what he broke. Starting with Patty. You can get her into the trial? I can do better than that. Isabel closed her laptop. I can personally oversee her case. Make sure she gets the best treatment protocol we have. No more automated systems. No more bureaucracy. Just help. Franklin felt his throat tighten. Why are you doing this? Isabel was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because 23 years ago, I sat in a hospital room and watched my little sister die. And I swore that day that I would never let another family feel that helpless. She looked toward the stairs, where Patty slept. Your daughter reminds me of Emma. Same age. Same smile. Same way of being brave when everything hurts. Isabel. I failed Emma. I was just a kid myself, but I failed her. I couldn't save her. Isabel's eyes met his, and Franklin saw tears threatening to spill. But I can save Patty. And I will. Even if it means burning down everything Marcus touched to do it. The clock on Franklin's microwave read 11:47 p.m. Isabel sat at his kitchen table, laptop open, phone on speaker. One by one, board members joined the emergency video call. Franklin could hear the confusion in their voices, the irritation at being woken up, the concern about what could possibly require a midnight meeting. Thank you all for joining, Isabel said, her voice perfectly composed. Professional. Not a hint of the emotion Franklin had just witnessed. I'm calling this emergency session under Section 7.3 of our bylaws. We have a situation that requires immediate board action. Isabel, this is highly irregular. That was Gordon Chun, the board chairman. Franklin recognized his voice from news interviews. What's irregular, Gordon? Is a board member systematically sabotaging pediatric clinical trial applications for personal revenge. Isabel's words cut through the speaker like ice. Silence. That's a serious accusation, Gordon said carefully. It's a documented fact. Isabel pulled up her screen share. Franklin could see the faces of 6 board members in small video windows, their expressions ranging from confusion to alarm. For the past 8 months, Marcus Hale has been using his administrative access to flag and block applications from children who qualified for our trials. 14 cases total. All children under 10. All with aggressive disease progression. She clicked through the evidence. Access logs. Flagged cases. Routing codes that bypassed the medical review team. This is impossible, someone said. A woman's voice. Marcus wouldn't. He knew these cases mattered to me personally, Isabel interrupted, her voice still calm but with an edge now. He knew I have alerts set up for certain profiles. Children who remind me of my sister. And he deliberately ensured these cases would never reach me or my medical team. She pulled up another document. This is case file LPC 47-2891. Patricia Russell, age 7. Stage 3 adenocarcinoma with aggressive progression. Applied 3 months ago. Qualified for immediate enrollment. Was instead flagged as non-viable and routed to automated rejection. Franklin's hands clenched on the table. Hearing Patty's case laid out like that, clinical, factual, proof of someone's cruelty, made his blood boil. The father attempted 17 times to submit updated medical records. Every attempt was intercepted and blocked by Marcus's administrative override. Isabel's voice hardened. This child has weeks, possibly days, without treatment. Marcus ensured she would die rather than let me help her. Where is Marcus? Gordon demanded. He should be on this call to defend himself. I haven't notified him. Isabel's smile was sharp. I wanted the board to see the evidence first. To understand the scope of what he's done before he has a chance to spin it. Isabel, even if this is true. It's not if, Gordon. It's documented fact. Every access is time-stamped. Every flag has his authorization code. She leaned forward, and Franklin could see her face in the laptop's camera. Cold, determined, unstoppable. Marcus Hale has used his position to harm children. To kill children. As revenge against me for divorcing him. The silence on the call was deafening. He knew this case mattered to me, Isabel said quietly, and Franklin heard the crack in her voice now. The pain beneath the professional veneer. because I once lost a sister to this same illness. Emma was 7 when she died. Just like Patricia is 7 now. Marcus knew that every child who matches Emma's profile gets my personal attention, and he made sure I'd never see them. My God, someone whispered. I'm calling for an immediate vote, Isabel said. Emergency removal of Marcus Hale from the board, effective immediately, for gross misconduct and violation of our ethical charter. All in favor. Franklin held his breath. One by one, the voices came through. Aye. Every single board member voted yes. The motion passes unanimously, Gordon said, his voice shaken. Marcus Hale is removed from the board, effective immediately. Isabel, what do you need from us? Access to reverse every flag he placed. Authority to personally review all 14 cases and expedite enrollment for any who still qualify. And Isabel's voice went steel hard. I want our legal team to explore criminal charges for each child who died while their application was blocked. What would you do if you discovered someone in power had deliberately harmed innocent children? Tell me in the comments. The board call ended at 12:43 a.m. Isabel closed her laptop and sat in silence for a moment, her hands flat on the table, her breathing carefully controlled. Franklin watched her, unsure what to say. He just witnessed something extraordinary, a woman wielding corporate power like a weapon, cutting down someone who tried to hurt her by hurting others. It's done, Isabel finally said. Marcus is out. The flags are being removed as we speak. She looked up at Franklin. Patty will be officially enrolled in the trial by morning. Franklin couldn't speak. The relief was so overwhelming it physically hurt. Within 24 hours, she'll have her first treatment, Isabel continued. I'm assigning Dr. Sarah Chun to her case. She's our best pediatric oncologist. The one who developed the protocol. Patty will get the highest level of care we can provide. I don't, Franklin's voice cracked. I don't know how to thank you. You don't thank me for doing what should have been done 3 months ago. Isabel stood, closing her laptop. I failed your daughter once. I won't do it again. She gathered her things, but Franklin noticed her hands were shaking slightly. The Iron Queen facade was cracking now that the battle was won. Isabel, he said softly, are you okay? She paused, and for a moment he thought she wouldn't answer. Then she set her bag down and turned to face him. I spent 23 years building this company, she said quietly. 23 years trying to honor Emma's memory. Trying to make sure no other family felt what mine felt. Her voice wavered. And my ex-husband used my sister's death, as a weapon. He killed children to hurt me. Franklin stood and without thinking, pulled her into a hug. Isabel went rigid for a second. Then she collapsed against him, her carefully maintained composure finally shattering. She didn't cry, not quite, but Franklin felt her whole body tremble with the weight of what she'd just learned. 14 children, she whispered against his shoulder. How many of them are still alive? How many died waiting for help that never came because Marcus wanted revenge? You didn't know, Franklin said firmly. This isn't your fault. I gave him that board seat. I made him part of the company. You trusted someone you once loved. That's human. What he did, that's monstrous. Franklin pulled back to look at her. But you stopped him. You saved Patty. You'll save the others. Isabel wiped her eyes quickly, pulling herself together. I need to review the other 13 cases tonight. Find out who else I can help. Who else needs immediate intervention? Tonight? Isabel, it's almost 1 in the morning. Children are dying, Franklin. They don't care what time it is. He recognized that look, the same desperate determination he'd felt every time Patty's condition worsened. The need to do something, anything, even when exhausted and broken. Okay, he said. But you're not doing it alone. I'll make coffee. Isabel blinked. You don't have to. My daughter is alive because you showed up when you didn't have to. Because you cared when you could have just sent a lawyer or an assistant. Franklin moved toward the kitchen. The least I can do is keep you caffeinated while you save more kids." For the first time since entering his house, Isabel smiled. A real smile. Small, but genuine. "Thank you, Franklin." They worked through the night at his kitchen table. Isabel pulled up case after case, cross-referencing medical records, making notes, sending urgent messages to her medical team. Franklin sat beside her, reading through files, helping organize documents, learning the medical terminology that had become his second language. At 6:47 a.m., as dawnlight filtered through his kitchen window, Isabel sent the final email. "It's done," she said, exhaustion clear in her voice. "All 14 cases are being reviewed for immediate enrollment. 7 qualify for the current trial. 3 need different protocols. 4, her voice caught. 4 didn't make it. They died while their applications were blocked." Franklin put his hand over hers. "But you saved 7. And you'll save Patty." Isabel nodded, then stood and gathered her things. "I should go. Let you rest. Patty will have her first appointment this afternoon. I'll text you the details." "Isabel." She paused at the door. "Thank you. For everything." She smiled, that same small, genuine smile. "Thank you for sending that text message, Franklin Russell, even if it was a mistake." Isabel didn't just enroll Patty in the trial. She showed up. That afternoon, when Franklin carried Patty into the Livingston Pharmaceutical Research Center, a gleaming building that looked more like a luxury hotel than a medical facility, Isabel was waiting in the lobby. Not in her office. Not sending an assistant. Standing there herself, in dark slacks and a soft blue sweater, holding a small wrapped package. "Patty," Isabel said, kneeling down as Franklin set his daughter on her feet. "I'm so glad you're here." Patty, who'd been quiet and nervous the whole car ride, lit up. "Isabel, you came." "Of course I came. This is an important day." She held out the package. "I brought you something." Patty took it with careful hands, her thin fingers working at the wrapping paper. Inside was a journal, leather-bound, with constellations embossed on the cover in gold. And tucked inside, a set of gel pens that sparkled. "It's a star journal," Isabel explained softly. "My sister Emma had one just like it. She used to draw the constellations she could see from her hospital window, and write about her dreams, all the places she'd visit when she got better." Patty traced the constellations with one finger. Did she get better? Franklin's heart clenched. But Isabel didn't flinch. "No, sweetheart. She didn't. But her journal helped her feel brave on the hard days. Helped her remember that even when things are dark, the stars are still there." Isabel smiled. "I thought maybe it could help you too." Patty hugged the journal to her chest. "I'll draw every constellation I can find. And when I get better, I'll show you." "When you get better," Isabel repeated, and Franklin heard the promise in those words. "I'm going to hold you to that." The treatment room was nothing like the cold, clinical spaces Franklin had grown used to. It looked more like a cozy living room, comfortable chairs, warm lighting, windows overlooking a garden. Dr. Sarah Chun was waiting, along with 2 nurses who greeted Patty like she was their favorite patient. Isabel stayed for the entire first treatment. She sat beside Patty while the 4 went in, holding her other hand, distracting her with stories about her sister. About the constellations Emma loved best. About the dreams she'd written in her journal. When Patty finally fell asleep, exhausted from the medication, Isabel stayed. Franklin watched her sit there, this powerful CEO who'd fired board members and threatened lawsuits just hours ago, gently brushing hair from his daughter's forehead. "You don't have to stay," he said quietly. "I know." Isabel didn't look away from Patty. "But I want to." Over the following weeks, Isabel showed up for every single appointment. Every 4 session. Every checkup and blood draw and scan. She brought more journals when Patty filled the first one. Brought books about astronomy. Brought star charts and glow-in-the-dark stickers for Patty's hospital room ceiling. And slowly, so slowly Franklin was afraid to hope, Patty started getting better. The color returned to her cheeks. Her breathing got easier. The monitors showed her numbers improving, week after week. "She's responding beautifully to the treatment," Dr. Chen said during week 6. "Better than we even hoped." Franklin cried in the parking lot that day. Just sat in his car and sobbed with relief. When he finally pulled himself together and went back inside, he found Isabel sitting with Patty, both of them bent over the star journal, drawing constellations together. "Dad." Patty called. "Isabel says when I'm all better, she'll take us to a real observatory. We can see the stars through a giant telescope." "When you're all better," Isabel confirmed, meeting Franklin's eyes over Patty's head. And in that look, Franklin saw everything: the hope, the determination, the love that had grown without either of them quite realizing it. This wasn't just a CEO saving a patient anymore. This was family. "She smells like flowers," Patty whispered to Franklin one evening after Isabel had left. They were sitting on the couch, Patty curled against his side, her star journal open on her lap. "Just like Mommy used to." Franklin went still. Patty rarely talked about her mother. She'd been so young when Sarah died, just 4 years old. Most of her memories had faded into impressions, feelings, the ghost of a scent or a song. "Yeah," he managed, his voice thick. "Lavender and something else. Something sweet." Patty traced a constellation she'd drawn, Cassiopeia, her current favorite. "Isabel wears the same perfume. Or maybe she just smells like good people smell." Franklin looked at his daughter, at the color in her cheeks that hadn't been there 2 months ago, at the way she could sit up without getting winded now, at the hope shining in eyes that had been too dim for too long. "You really like her, don't you?" "I love her," Patty said simply, with the straightforward honesty of children. "She makes you smile different. Not the pretend smile. The real one." Franklin didn't know what stunned him more, that his 7-year-old daughter had noticed his fake smiles, or that she'd also noticed when they became real. "She makes you happy too," he said. "She makes everything better." Patty closed her journal carefully. Do you think she could stay? Like forever?" Franklin's heart squeezed. "Baby, Isabel has a whole company to run. She's a very busy, very important person. But she comes here every time. She never misses my appointments." Patty looked up at him with those wise, too old eyes. "Important people who are too busy don't do that. She comes because she wants to." "You're right," Franklin admitted. "So maybe she wants to stay." Patty yawned, her medications making her drowsy. Maybe she just needs someone to ask her. Franklin carried Patty to bed a few minutes later, tucking her in among her new constellation stickers and the glow-in-the-dark stars Isabel had helped her arrange on the ceiling. As he sang the lullaby, Sarah's lullaby, he realized something. He was falling in love with Isabel Livingston. Maybe he'd been falling since that first night when she showed up at his door and chose to help instead of destroy him. Or maybe it was the moment she knelt before Patty and promised to fight for her. Or one of the 100 small moments since. The way she laughed at Patty's jokes, the way she listened when Franklin talked about his fears, the way she'd learned to make terrible coffee in his kitchen during late-night treatment planning sessions. The ice queen the media wrote about, cold, calculating, ruthless, didn't exist. Or maybe she did in boardrooms and business deals. But the woman who sat with his daughter for hours, who brought star journals and told stories about her lost sister, who looked at Franklin like he was something more than just a struggling janitor. That woman was real. Warm. Gentle in ways she probably didn't let most people see. And Franklin, who'd thought he'd never feel this way again after Sarah died, was completely terrifyingly in love with her. His phone buzzed. A text from Isabel. "How's our girl doing tonight?" Franklin smiled, the real smile Patty had noticed, and typed back, "Tired but happy. Asking when you'll visit again. Tomorrow, if that's okay. I have morning meetings, but I could come by around 2. You don't have to come every day. I know. But I want to. Is that okay?" Franklin stared at those words. "I want to. More than okay," he typed. "We'll see you tomorrow." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Franklin, thank you. For letting me be part of this. Part of her recovery." It means more than I can say. He wanted to tell her it was him who should be grateful. That she'd saved more than just Patty's life, she'd saved his too. That somewhere between the mistaken text and now, she'd become essential. But that felt like too much to say over text. So instead he wrote, "Thank you for showing up." Every single time. Always, came her reply. And Franklin believed her. Have you ever realized you were falling in love at the most unexpected time? Share your story below. 4 months passed like a dream Franklin was afraid to wake from. Patty grew stronger week by week. Her scans came back clearer. Her energy returned. The girl who'd been too weak to climb stairs was now running through the house, demanding trips to the park, begging Franklin to let her join the soccer team when she was all the way better. Dr. Chun called it remarkable. A textbook response to treatment. Franklin called it a miracle. And through it all, Isabel was there. Not just for appointments anymore. She started coming for dinner, awkward at first, this billionaire CEO sitting at his scratched kitchen table eating his mediocre cooking. But Patty adored her, and somehow Isabel fit. She helped with homework, played board games, let Patty teach her the constellations she'd memorized from her journals. She came to the park and pushed Patty on the swings. Showed up at Franklin's work one day with coffee and stayed to talk during his lunch break, not caring that she was sitting in a janitor's closet surrounded by mops and cleaning supplies. "You know," Franklin's sister Maria said during a rare phone call, "when you told me you'd fallen in love with the ice queen of Big Pharma, I thought you'd lost your mind." "I probably have," Franklin admitted, watching through the window as Isabel and Patty built a blanket fort in the living room. "But then I saw the photos you sent. The way she looks at Patty. The way she looks at you." Maria's voice softened. "She loves you both. You know that, right?" Franklin did know. He could see it in every gesture, every visit, every text message checking on them. The way Isabel's corporate mask disappeared the moment she walked through his door. The way she'd started keeping a toothbrush in his bathroom. The way she fell asleep on his couch after long days, Patty curled against one side and Franklin against the other. But neither of them had said it yet. Not out loud. Not until March 17th, exactly 1 year after Franklin had sent that catastrophic text message. Isabel showed up that evening with takeout and wine, finding Franklin in the kitchen, nervous energy radiating off him. "You okay?" she asked, setting down the bags. "It's been a year," he said. "Since the text. Since you showed up at my door and changed everything." Isabel smiled. "Best mistake you ever made?" "Best mistake I ever made." Franklin took a breath. "Isabel, I need to tell you something." "Franklin. Let me say this. Please." He moved closer, taking her hands. They were trembling, his or hers, he couldn't tell. "A year ago, I was drowning. Watching my daughter die. Watching everything I loved slip away. And then I sent that stupid text, and you came, and you saved her. Saved us. Franklin, you don't have to. I'm in love with you." The words tumbled out, urgent and true. "I'm completely, impossibly in love with you. And I know I'm just a janitor and you're this brilliant, powerful, amazing woman who could have anyone." Isabel kissed him. It was soft and sudden and tasted like wine and hope and everything Franklin had been too afraid to want. "You're not just anything," Isabel whispered against his lips. "You're the man who fought for his daughter when everyone told him no. Who opened his door to a stranger. Who taught me how to be human again." She pulled back, eyes bright. "I'm in love with you too. I have been for months." Franklin's heart soared. Then he remembered the small box in his pocket, the one he'd been carrying for weeks, waiting for the right moment. "There's something else," he said. Before he could reach for the box, Patty's voice rang out from the doorway. "Are you gonna ask her now? 'Cause I can't keep the secret much longer." They both turned to find Patty standing there in her pajamas, bouncing on her toes, healthy and alive and grinning like she'd won the lottery. "Patty," Franklin laughed. "I told you to stay upstairs. But this is the important part." Patty ran over and tugged Isabel's hand. "He's gonna ask you. And I get to help." Isabel looked between them, confused and delighted. Ask me what? Franklin pulled out the box. Nothing fancy, he couldn't afford fancy. Just a simple silver band with a small diamond, and knelt down. Patty immediately grabbed the box from him. Wait, I'm supposed to hold it. Patty. But his daughter was already turning to Isabel, holding up the ring with both hands like it was the most precious thing in the world. Isabel, Patty said seriously, will you marry my dad and be my mom? Please say yes. Because we love you and we need you and you make everything better, Anne. Patty took a breath and continued, her voice wobbling now with emotion. And I know you had a sister who died and it makes you sad, but maybe you could have us instead? Not to replace her, but just to love. Isabel's hand flew to her mouth. Franklin saw the exact moment she broke, the Ice Queen shattering completely, replaced by a woman who'd spent 23 years holding herself together and had finally found a reason to let go. Tears spilled down Isabel's cheeks. She sank to her knees in front of Patty, taking the ring box in trembling hands. Oh, sweetheart, Isabel whispered. You could never replace Emma. But you. Her voice cracked. You've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. Family. A reason to believe in happy endings. She looked up at Franklin, who was still kneeling, his own eyes wet. Yes, Isabel said, the word breaking on a sob. Yes, yes, yes. To both of you. Forever. Patty shrieked with joy and threw her arms around Isabel's neck. Franklin pulled them both into a hug, this impossible family that had formed from tragedy and mistakes and accidental text messages. When they finally pulled apart, Patty carefully took the ring from the box and handed it to Franklin. Now you do the official part, Dad. Franklin laughed through his tears and slid the ring onto Isabel's finger. It was too big, he'd guessed at the size, but Isabel clutched her hand to her chest like it was perfect anyway. I'll get it resized, Franklin promised. Don't you dare, Isabel said fiercely. It's perfect exactly as it is. Patty wedged herself between them, grinning up at Isabel. So now you're gonna be my mom? If you'll have me, Isabel said softly. I already told everyone at the hospital you were my mom, Patty admitted. Dr. Chun said she figured. She said we have the same smile now. Isabel touched Patty's face with gentle fingers. The same smile. The happy one. The real one. Like Dad said, we're not pretending anymore. Franklin watched his daughter, their daughter now, beam at the woman who'd saved her life and stolen his heart. Watched Isabel transform from the controlled CEO into someone open and vulnerable and holy, completely theirs. I love you, he said to Isabel. Both of us do. So much. I love you both too. Isabel pulled them close again. My family. My second chance. She stopped, overwhelmed. Your happy ending, Patty finished confidently. Just like in my star journal. I wrote it down that you'd say yes. I saw it in the stars. Did you now? Isabel smiled through her tears. Yep. Cassiopeia told me. She's the queen constellation, and she said queens deserve to be happy too. Isabel laughed, a sound of pure joy that Franklin had never heard from her before. Well, if Cassiopeia said so. They stayed there on the kitchen floor, the three of them tangled together, until Patty yawned and announced she was tired. Franklin carried her to bed while Isabel cleaned up the forgotten takeout. When he came back downstairs, he found her standing at the window, ring catching the light, a soft smile on her face. Hey, he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Hey. She leaned back against him. I came to your house a year ago thinking I'd handle a PR disaster. Instead I found you. Found her. Found home. The mistaken text, Franklin murmured. The best mistake either of us ever made. Isabel turned in his arms and kissed him properly this time, slow and deep and full of promise. When they broke apart, she was smiling that smile Patty had noticed. The real one. When should we tell the press? Franklin asked. This is going to be huge news. Billionaire CEO marries a janitor. I don't care what the press thinks, Isabel interrupted. but we should probably tell my board before they read it in the tabloids." She paused. "And Franklin? You're not just a janitor. You're the man who saved me right back. Who reminded me why I started this company. Who gave me a family again." "We're going to have to figure out logistics," Franklin said practically. "Your penthouse or my rental. Your schedule or mine. How to blend two very different worlds." "We'll figure it out," Isabel said simply. "Together. That's what families do." From upstairs, they heard Patty call out, "Are you guys done being mushy? 'Cause I can't sleep until I know you're both staying." They laughed and headed upstairs together, to tuck in their daughter, to start their new life, to prove that sometimes the worst mistakes lead to the best endings. The Ice Queen was gone. In her place stood Isabel, mother fiancée, the woman who'd learned that power wasn't about control. It was about showing up. Every single time. For the people you loved. The announcement came 3 weeks after the engagement. Isabel stood at a press conference podium, Franklin and Patty seated in the front row, as she addressed a room full of reporters and medical professionals. "Effective immediately, Livingston Pharmaceutical is restructuring our clinical trial admission process," Isabel began, her voice steady and clear. "We've discovered systematic failures that prevented qualified patients, specifically pediatric patients, from accessing potentially life-saving treatments." The room erupted with questions. Isabel raised a hand. "I take full responsibility for these failures. They happened under my watch, within my company. And I'm here today to announce the changes we're implementing to ensure they never happen again." She clicked to the next slide. Franklin watched her command the room with the same intensity she'd brought to that midnight board call. But this time, there was something different. Something softer beneath the steel. "First, we're establishing the Emma Livingston Memorial Fund." Isabel's voice caught slightly on her sister's name. "This fund will provide free access to our pediatric trials for any family, regardless of financial circumstances. No child will be denied treatment because they can't afford it." Applause rippled through the room. "Second, we're implementing a patient advocate oversight system. Every rejected application will be reviewed by a medical professional, not an algorithm, not an administrator. A doctor who understands the urgency of these cases." More applause. "Third," Isabel's expression hardened. "We're pursuing legal action against former board member Marcus Hale for systematic interference with patient applications. Evidence has been turned over to federal authorities for investigation of potential criminal negligence." The room exploded with questions. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted over each other. Franklin watched Isabel handle it all with grace, answering what she could, redirecting when necessary, never once losing her composure. But he could see the cost in the tightness around her eyes, the way her knuckles whitened on the podium. When she finally wrapped up and stepped down, Patty immediately ran to her. "You were so brave," Patty announced, hugging Isabel's legs. Isabel scooped her up, something that would have been impossible 4 months ago when Patty was too weak to be lifted safely. "Not as brave as you, sweetheart." "Is that bad man going to jail?" Patty asked with a child's directness. "I hope so," Isabel said honestly. "He hurt a lot of people. He needs to answer for that." Franklin joined them, his hand finding Isabel's free one. "You did good up there." "It's not enough." Isabel's jaw tightened. 14 cases, Franklin. 4 children died because of him. No amount of press conferences or policy changes brings them back. "No," Franklin agreed. "But you're making sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. That matters." Over the following months, Isabel's changes transformed the company. The Emma Livingston Memorial Fund accepted its first 50 families, children from across the country who'd been denied access to trials they desperately needed. The new patient advocate system caught cases that would have slipped through the cracks. And Marcus Hale. He didn't just lose his board seat. The federal investigation uncovered a pattern of misconduct beyond the pediatric cases. Financial irregularities, ethics violations, evidence of other acts of corporate sabotage designed to hurt Isabel's reputation. He was arrested on a Tuesday morning, led out of his luxury apartment in handcuffs, cameras capturing every moment for the evening news. Franklin and Isabel watched the coverage from her penthouse. Their penthouse now, though Franklin was still getting used to the space, so different from his small rental. "How do you feel?" Franklin asked as the news showed Marcus being escorted into a police car. Isabel was quiet for a long moment. "I thought I'd feel satisfaction. Vindication. Instead I just feel." She trailed off, searching for words. "Sad. That someone I once loved became someone capable of such cruelty." "You're allowed to feel sad," Franklin said, pulling her close. "Even about people who hurt you. He could have been better. Could have moved on, built a good life." Isabel leaned against Franklin's shoulder. Instead he chose revenge. And children paid the price. Patty appeared in the doorway, carrying her star journal. "Is the bad man gone now?" "Yes, sweetheart," Isabel said. "He's gone. He can't hurt anyone anymore." "Good." Patty climbed onto the couch between them. "Because I want to show you the constellation I drew for the wedding. It's called the Family Star. I made it up myself." Isabel smiled, the sadness lifting as Patty opened her journal to reveal an elaborate drawing. 3 stars connected in a triangle, labeled Dad, Isabel, and Patty, surrounded by smaller stars she'd labeled with names of people they loved. "It's perfect," Isabel whispered. "Just like us," Patty agreed confidently. "We're a perfect family. The stars said so." Franklin looked at his daughter, healthy, happy, planning their wedding, and at Isabel, who'd gone from stranger to savior to the love of his life. He thought about Marcus in custody, about the children who'd now get help because Isabel had fought for them, about how one mistaken text message had led to all of this. "Yeah," he said, kissing the top of Patty's head and then Isabel's temple. "The stars got it exactly right." Have you ever witnessed justice being served for someone who truly deserved it? Tell me how it felt in the comments. One wrong text. That's all it took. Franklin Russell thought about that sometimes, in quiet moments. Like now, standing at the back of the auditorium at Livingston Pharmaceuticals' annual conference, watching Isabel give the keynote speech about pediatric oncology research. He thought about that moment, 3:17 p.m. on March 17th, 1 year and 8 months ago, when his thumb had hovered over the send button, when he'd pressed it without double-checking the name, when his world had threatened to end. Except it hadn't ended. It had been reborn. The Emma Livingston Memorial Fund has now provided free trial access to over 300 children, Isabel was saying from the stage, her voice clear and strong. Our 5-year survival rates have increased by 43%. We've published 12 breakthrough studies. And most importantly, she paused, her eyes finding Franklin's across the crowded room. We've remembered that behind every case number is a child, a family, a story. Applause filled the auditorium. Patty, sitting beside Franklin in her fancy dress, the one Isabel had let her pick out herself, leaned over and whispered, "Mom's really good at speeches." Mom. The word still made Franklin's chest tighten with joy every time Patty said it. "Yes, she is," he whispered back. After the speech, after the networking and congratulations and 100 people wanting to talk to Isabel, they finally escaped to the parking garage. Just the 3 of them, Isabel's heels in her hand, Patty falling asleep on Franklin's shoulder. "You were incredible up there," Franklin said as they reached the car. "I was terrified," Isabel admitted, pressing the key fob. "Public speaking never gets easier." "You couldn't tell. That's because you too were there." She looked at them, her husband of 6 months, her daughter who was now officially, legally hers through adoption that had finalized last week. "You're my courage." They drove home, to the house they'd bought together, the compromise between his small rental and her downtown penthouse. A place with a yard for Patty and a home office for Isabel, and enough space for all 3 of them to breathe. Later, after Patty was tucked into bed, after the dishes were done and the day's chaos had settled, Franklin found Isabel on the back porch, staring up at the stars. He wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and pulled her close. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "That text message," Isabel said softly. "The one that started everything. I was so angry when I first read it. This random man, hitting on me, not knowing who I was." She laughed quietly. "I drove to your house to tell you off. To make sure you understood the gravity of your mistake. And instead I found Patty. Found you. Found a reason to remember why I started this company." Isabel turned to face him. "That message was meant for someone else. A woman you barely knew. But it came to me. And it changed everything." Franklin thought about Tina, the kindergarten teacher from the dating app. He'd sent her an apology the next day, explaining the situation. She'd been gracious, wished him well, and they'd never spoken again. He wondered sometimes what his life would be like if that text had gone to her instead. Maybe they would have dated. Maybe it would have worked out, or maybe it wouldn't have. But he never would have found Isabel. Patty never would have gotten into the trial. They never would have become this impossible, beautiful family. "Do you believe in fate?" Franklin asked. "I believe in mistakes that turn into miracles," Isabel said. "I believe in wrong numbers that lead to right people. I believe," she took his hand, the one wearing the simple gold band that matched hers. "I believe that sometimes the universe sends you exactly what you need, even if it arrives as something you think you don't want." From the baby monitor on the porch railing, they heard Patty's sleepy voice. "Are you guys being mushy again?" They laughed, and Isabel called up, "Go to sleep, sweetheart." "Can't sleep. Too happy." A pause. "I love you, Mom. Love you, Dad." "Love you too, baby girl," they said in unison. Franklin pulled Isabel closer, both of them looking up at the stars. The same stars Patty drew in her journals. The same stars that had witnessed every moment of their unexpected journey. One wrong text had rewritten 3 broken lives. Had turned a dying child into a thriving one. Had transformed an ice queen into a mother. Had given a desperate father a reason to believe in second chances. "So," Isabel murmured against Franklin's chest, "if you could go back to that moment, 3:17 p.m., your thumb on the send button, would you change it?" Franklin thought about the panic, the terror, the certainty that he destroyed his daughter's last hope. He thought about how wrong he'd been. "Not for anything in the world," he said. "Me neither." They stood there under the stars, 2 people who'd found each other through chaos and mistakes, and the kind of divine accident that changes everything. And somewhere in the universe, maybe Emma was smiling. Maybe she'd guided that text to her sister, knowing Isabel needed saving just as much as Patty did. Or maybe it was just chance. Just a thumb pressed at the wrong moment, a name clicked in error, a message sent to the wrong person. But wrong can become right. Mistakes can become miracles. And sometimes, the worst thing you ever did leads to the best thing that ever happened.
Thanks so much for watching till the end. If this story moved you, you're going to love what's coming next. It's even more surprising and emotional than this one. Go ahead and click the story on your screen right now, and see you in the next story.